Come see us on tour in Dallas, Austin, Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, New York, Atlantic City, Levittown, Cohoes, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for the link for the cheapest tickets. So I'm just going to show you what Trump is doing. So Trump is doing a lot really fast, and the news media can't keep up with it. He's doing so much so fast. He's auditing. He's getting rid of USAID, DEI. He's putting tariffs on Canada, Mexico, Colombia. He's doing so many things so fast. Well, let's hear Steve Bannon. Here's what he has to say about it.
At a certain point, there's only so much from the executive that he can do, right? When are we going to hit that?
Untrue. I think you see right now, I say it's both scale, depth, and urgency. That's why you're seeing, and look, I strongly believe in the flood the zone theory, which is just overwhelm the opposition. And I think President Trump has done an amazing thing, is you pick all the different verticals you're going to, and you just drop the hammer. It's executive orders, executive action, all of this.
So he's flooding the zone. Here's what J.D. Vance says. This is the new normal. Expect this rapid-fire breakneck pace to continue for 4 full years.
Good.
So this guy says, John A. Conrad V. says, I opened my New York Times app today. They're trying, but they can't keep up. News that broke just hours ago is already off the homepage. This is crucial. The entire liberal deep state command and control system is broken.
Oh, I said that when we watched the DNC thing. They look like they're not getting transmissions no more.
That's right.
Too many cows and not enough ranchers.
So first, let me explain to you what the liberal deep state command and control system looks like, right? Well, the New York Times' primary function isn't journalism. It's narrative coordination, setting the frame so the entire political media machine knows how to think about an issue before it takes off. Ever notice how overnight everyone starts saying Biden is as sharp as a tack or J.D. Vance is weird? It's not random. There's a system in place.
Yeah, I say it over and over.
The narrative pipeline, it's how the blob operates. The New York Times, NPR, Washington Post, CNN, and the rest don't just react to news. They function as a distributed, decentralized mission command system for the Democratic Party and the broader blob. Step 1, local bureau chiefs. These guys are stationed across the country watching which stories gain traction and fielding calls from Democratic operatives feeding them narratives, stories that they need to start controlling. Step 2, New York editors, bureau chiefs snip the news and send it to New York where an editor triages it. Will this explode nationwide? Will it simmer for days, or should we bury it? Step 3, editorial meetings. The most concerning stories get flagged. Here, editors decide on the narrative framing and who's assigned to write it. Before they assign a journalist, they make one critical call to the deep state. Why? To give the government a head start on controlling the story. At this point, the deep state doesn't just say, hey, here's what happened. They strategically select sources based on the tone they want. If they need hawkish China rhetoric, they have a China hardliner expert on speed dial. If they want to downplay a Chinese spy cartel, they go to a dovish China expert who will say it's being blown out of proportion. If it's a military scandal, they pick a trustworthy retired general to subtly steer the discussion toward a desired conclusion. This isn't journalism. It's perception warfare. That's what you're reading in the New York Times, Washington Post.
Mind War, it's called.
What? Yeah, what's it called?
Mind War, Psy War. We played the commercial on Rogan.
That's right.
That's what this is. Mind control.
But once the tone is set, the editor assigns the story and suggests the approved sources to call. The journalist's job is simple. Get quotes from the right experts, write it up, and stick to the approved angles. If something goes wrong with the angle, for example, a source exposes it as a lie, they return to the editor for guidance. Occasionally, a journalist oversteps. If it's minor, it passes. If it's major, the editor kills the piece, buries it on page 16, or reassigns it to a more trusted writer to correct the framing. Overstep too many times, and you're reassigned to local news or gently, if not your fault, we love your spark, just downsizing, you're let go. Do a really good job sticking to the approved script and you'll get awards or book deals and travel. They gave Pulitzers to the guys who wrote garbage about Russiagate. The guys who pushed Russiagate got Pulitzer prizes. Guys who told lies about the Syria gas attack also got Pulitzer Prizes. Rachel Maddow got a $35 million reward contract for lying about Trump Russiagate at the top of her lungs for 4 years. Nobody flatly says this award isn't for towing the party line because that would expose the scam. No, these journalists are smart. They either pick up on the reward incentives or they get gently pushed aside. Suddenly, every news outlet, late night host, and blue check is reinforcing the exact same message like during COVID. You saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And because they aren't technically taking orders, just like right now, they're calling Trump's a fascist. And because they aren't technically taking orders, they think it's their own independent analysis. This is what I talk about when I say that the people in those editorial meetings have been groomed to be in them since they were in kindergarten, and they don't know it. It's just like Chomsky told that reporter. The reporter says, I'm not told what to say. He says, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that if you wanted to say something different, you wouldn't have that job. So they pick people who already are people who are compliant, who don't color outside the lines. That's how journalism happens in America. That's why Jeff Bezos hired Dave Weigel, a guy who, when he was an editor of his college newspaper, organized pro-Iraq war rallies. He hired that guy to cover progressive politics for the Washington Post. Do you see how it works? They know your mindset already. That's how you get there. And if you go ahead.
The great Crystal Ball said it best. If you want to maintain a relationship with power, guys,
that's
then
it.
You do, guys, maintain relationship with power.
This is why the narrative feels so unified. No one's forcing compliance. It's a system that rewards alignment. Now, each individual pundit and blog is allowed to post independently, but we all know unconsciously to work the narrative because that's where the rewards are. That's why they all said Biden's sharp and effective. And now they're all saying, yeah, I should have pushed back more. Because they know if they would have pushed back more, they'd all be fired. If someone breaks the narrative in a bug way, or just like now Piers Morgan say, yeah, I should have been more skeptical of the vaccine rollout. Well, he couldn't have been at the time when it counted because he would have got pushed out and marginalized. If someone breaks the narrative in a bug way intentionally, there are three options. Smear campaign to make them toxic. That's what they did to Matt Taibbi, because Matt Taibbi told the truth about censorship. So they smeared him. Same thing with Glenn Greenwald. Same thing with Tucker Carlson. They didn't smear Tucker Carlson for lying about the Iraq war. They smeared Tucker Carlson for telling the truth about the Ukraine war. Ban them from the system. Wikipedia blacklist, social media throttle, no DC party invites, no Pentagon press pass. Turn them into a double agent who claims to buck the narrative but subtly shifts things left. AKA Barry Weiss is the ultimate genius at this.
Oh, she 100%.
That's
is
right.
Like delighted to know somebody famous.
Yes, and she
cool
pretends
girl.
to be the person bucking the narrative, but she's not. She's pushing the establishment narrative. Not all stories emerge organically. Sometimes the deep state calls first. A senior editor gets a call. Everyone in D.C. is talking about how weird J.D. Vance is. The next morning in an editorial meeting, that becomes, people are saying J.D. Vance is weird. Let's get some stories on that. Then every editor repeats it to the reporters. Did you hear J.D. Vance is weird? Let's explore that. That's how that happens.
Jimmy, I heard he's married to an Indian lady.
The deep state tries its best to play a soft hand. They let things emerge around the narrative and only step in if the narrative is evolving in a bad way or new information disturbs the narrative. So where does the organic command and control system come from? Well, the military, of course. Why this matters, the mission control model, command model. This decentralized coordination mirrors how the best militaries operate through a doctrine called mission command. A bad general micromanages. Move 3 platoons and 6 tanks around this road and attack the base. But a good general gives flexibility. Hey, take this logistics base by X time and figure out the best way. So a great general sets intent. We need to cripple their supply lines. Here's what we know about their logistics. The best commanders set objectives, not orders. Then they let their officers adapt on the ground. The same thing with the news media. The best editors do this. That's exactly how the New York Times and the Blob operate. They don't give direct orders to every outlet. They set the intent, how the political media machine should think about an issue. Then think tanks, columnists, TV hosts, and activists execute their own variations of the message.
So they act like a popular bitchy girl at school? Is that they're playing?
And here's
amazing.
why we got to get through this. Why Republicans keep losing the narrative war. Republicans don't have this. There's no clear commander's intent, no unified messaging framework, no ecosystem where think tanks, media, and party strategists move in the same direction. Instead, it's chaotic, it's reactive, it's uncoordinated. Meanwhile, Democrats operate like a well-oiled mission command system, not because of a single top-down controller, but because every key player understands their role is pushing the message. And until Republicans build a competing system, they'll always be playing defense. And here's what Trump is doing to break through that. Trump has broken the Dems' mission command system. The famed fighter pilot John Boyd, who literally wrote the manual for Top Gun, came up with this thing called OODA loop.
OODA loop?
OODA loop. OODA is a process for making better calculated decisions faster. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Okay?
Oh, I like the pentagram that he uses for it. That's cool.
So I can't go into all the details on how the food system works. It can throw a lot of information at an enemy, information of all kinds, including false information. They start to get overloaded. That is what's called the fog of war, and that's what's happening right now to the media. Because there's so much shit happening right now with Trump, so many things he's doing, implementing, things are moving so fast, they're getting overloaded. Now, military have been doing fake attacks and fake information and maneuvering around objectives for centuries. But what Boyd found is you can't overload the enemy system because your troops will also get overloaded with information. You can't just overload them. What you have to do is move and adapt. Throw out a ton of information, then let your officers change frequently. In the field, an officer might bypass the logistic base and go for the train rail, but the misinformation causes the enemy to abandon the base, so the officer will turn around and destroy it. In a fighter jet, you might fly straight so the enemy thinks you have a problem. When he's on your tail, most people would push the throttle. Boyd said it might be better to drop the flops as a brake to make the enemy fly right past you. Be unpredictable. Boyd calling this maneuver warfare because you're always maneuvering around the enemy. If you can not only throw out more information, but move a lot faster than your enemy and change tactics on the fly, you will get inside the enemy's OODA loop and win easily. This is exactly what Trump is doing right now. The sheer number of stories is absolutely overloading the New York Times app. New York Times editors do not have time to coordinate with the deep state and coax the process. Trump is completely overloading the information distribution system. And it's not just overloaded the system, but he's moving fast and adapting tactics. Instances in Panama, he was demanding the canal. But then when he went down, there took a quick win with giving Navy ships free transit and kicking China. Then he's on to Canadian tariffs before the New York Times editors can figure out what the hell happened in Panama. And well before they can develop a narrative for Panama. So Trump's on to the next thing. Boyd didn't just teach us how to defeat the enemy. He taught us how to recognize when you're already winning. The easiest way to tell the enemy starts making really dumb moves. They waste ammo shooting in empty forests, convinced you're still there when you actually left 2 days ago. Then they fly in a senior general to bark orders, trying to reassert control over a situation already spiraling out of their hands. This sound familiar? That's exactly what the Democrats are doing right now. Chuck Schumer is firing off a constant stream of bombastic orders, desperate to override events he can't control. The media is fixated on asinine distractions, like their price of eggs, while the real war is being fought elsewhere. When When the enemy is losing, they can't see the forest for the trees. Take the aid collapse, a massive exposure of corruption. Instead of grasping the real problem, Democrats have tunnel vision, obsessing over physical access to the building rather than the deeper rot that it's exposing. And when they're really losing, they go after the general. Boyd taught us that when an enemy is out of options, they target the figurehead, hoping to break morale. That's exactly what's happening with Elon. But a great general knows the game. Patton famously commanded a full fake army during D-Day, letting the enemy fixate on him while lower-level officers did the real work. And that's where we are now. The Democrats are flailing, distracted, and losing control. Meanwhile, the real fight is happening far below their line of sight. In short, the sheer number of stories on the New York Times app right now, no clear narrative, tunnel focused on things that don't matter, and bombastic attempts by generals like Schumer and AOC, whole point to one irrefutable, they all point to one irrefutable fact. Trump is literally running circles around them. Did Boyd teach us how to defeat masterful maneuver warfare like the kind Trump is executing now? Yes, but maneuver warfare is insanely hard to stop. In any scenario, it's designed to keep enemy off balance. What looks chaotic is actually well-planned assault. Trump isn't just making one move at a time. He's prepping multiple maneuvers for every possible response. If Democrats attack a specific front, he simply drops one plan and picks up another, fully baked, ready to go. He's had years to refine this. That's what I've been saying. It's a great thing he lost in 2020 because he had 4 years to come up with this plan, and they've got one. The Democrats, they're starting from scratch. Maneuver warfare isn't just about the 4 stars, Elon, JD, Hegseth, or even the 3 stars, cabinet secretaries. The real game is won by the 1 star and 2 stars, the undersecretaries, the chiefs of staff, and the frontline commanders. And Democrats, they haven't even begun to focus on the actual battlefield command center. Guys like Michael Gwaltz, literal Green Beret who spent 2 decades mastering maneuver warfare. I'm not about to explain how they can win in a Twitter thread. So there you go. So that's how it
looks like that.
So that's exactly what's happening. So they're fighting over RFK. They're fighting over Tulsi, Hegseth. We switch to Panama. We switch to Canada. We switch to Colombia. We switch to DEI. We switch to USAID. We switch now to the Pentagon. It's too much for them. They don't even know. They don't know what's coming at them. They're firing all the people at the FBI. They're getting rid of all the federal employees. They're doing all kinds. It's too much for the New York Times app to handle. And that's how Trump's getting all this done.
I wonder who got whacked at the top, because again, these are all people waiting for orders to come that aren't coming, and then they're in disarray and panicking. So what's the command center of them? Who was that got removed that they have to panic? Because before they had like a unified marching order and they didn't seem to be worried by it.
Well, they're still doing that. You see them out there. They're always 2 or 3 days behind Trump. They're out there now. They're literally defending buildings. They're defending USAID. You're defending the CIA cutouts? That's what they're left doing. They look like idiots. Even Jon Stewart made fun of them. I showed you in the first story today.
It looks like if Walt Disney World abandoned Disney World and just all the goofies formed a society. They went, it's like leftover mascots, hey. So
that 4 years Trump had off, he wasn't wasting them. He came in with a plan, and they are overwhelming the enemy, and they're doing maneuver warfare, and he's winning. Come see us on tour in Dallas, Austin, Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, New York, Atlantic City, Levittown, Cohoes, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for the link for the cheapest tickets.